Yes, children. So, good morning. So, today we are going to start with the new chapter in Indian economic development, that is the human capital formation in India. So, human capital, that means all the skills, knowledges, and all ideas all available with the human beings, that is called collectively known as human capital. Okay. So collectively they are known as human capital formation. So concept of human capital and human capital formation, that is human capital refers to the stock of skill and expertise of a nation at a point of time. So what all skills and what all knowledge is available with the human beings at that particular point of time, if it is taken together, that is called human capital. Okay, it's a sum total of skill and expertise of engineers, doctors, professors and all other types of workers who are engaged in the process of production. So when you take all these things together, all the skills and expertise of all these workers together, you will get the human capital. And human capital formation means it is the process of adding to the stock of human capital over time. That is by providing this thing, what you can say, the training, on the job training, off the job training, spending so much of money for education, health, all these things. See, for a better human capital, not only knowledge and skill is needed, but also health is needed. So that is why education and health is most important in the case of human capital formation. And you have some sources of human capital formation, that is the determinants of human capital formation. First one is, as I told you, that is the expenditure on education. Expenditure on education is the most effective way of raising a productive workforce in the country. And so it is therefore a very important determinant of human capital formation. So education, as we have already discussed, it adds to human capital formation very significantly. So that is a very significant element of the what you could say, very significant element in the human capital formation. So most families decide to incur huge expenditure on education. That is because, see, returns on such expenditures are substantially large. Suppose if you take our examples itself, our parents leave us to a good school, right? Good reputed school. Why that is so happening? That means investment on a good education gives more return to the family. So that is why if you are doing MBA, if you are doing any such PG equivalent courses, that is actually the advantages to the family. Okay, but if you are stopping your education from 12th standard, means it is not anywhere, we will never reach anywhere. So nowadays PG is lesser. Okay, PG is a lesser qualification. So that means if you study more, you will be occupied more. Okay. So education enables an individual to make a good living throughout his life. That is, his total earnings during his lifespan would far exceed his initial expenditure on education. If he is actually going to a good education institution, that return is very much higher than the expenditure he incurred on the education. Next is expenditure on health. Expenditure on health, see, skill is actually not important. You have skill, you have knowledge, but it is not you could not actually what you could say, put into correct position because of you are you are ill, or you are unhealthy. That is actually doesn't matter where. So that means you have to be healthy to put your knowledge and skill in a appropriate position. Okay. So expenditure on health makes a man more efficient and therefore more productive. So his contribution to the production proceeds tend to rise, and he adds more to the GDP of a nation than the sick person. Then on the job training, that means, see, nowadays if you enter into a job, maybe 6 to 8 months you will be in training period. That is on the job training. You are actually trained to become as if you could say as if you are going to become an element of that company. So you will be trained accordingly. So whatever training you are getting, it is actually adding to your knowledge and skill. So actually you are developing that. Okay, you are getting developed through these trainings. So on the job training, to their specialized skills, it enables to rise the level of efficiency and productivity. And firms are always inclined to undertake the on-the-job training programs because returns will far exceed the cost of training. Then study programs for adults, that is NGOs. NGOs organize a very good awareness programs of education as well as health. So formal education is primary, secondary and higher secondary. You have these NGOs working now in the country. That means they actually put forward informal type of education. Okay. If you go and watch, or if you, I don't know whether you are actually aware of MAD, Make a Difference. That is actually a well-known NGO. They actually, what you could say, they impart knowledge informally. Okay, to the children in government schools. They impart knowledge very frequently and very informally. So that is also a kind of what you could say, an expenditure on education. And HelpAge India, like such health NGOs are also working now in the country. So they actually provide very brief health facilities to the people, those who are unable to achieve those health expenditures. Then migration. Migration means actually moving from one place to another. So migration, see, migration contributes to human capital formation as it facilitates utilization of inactive skills of the people, or it facilitates fuller or better utilization of skills. So now from here I am going to Gujarat and doing work, means my efficiency is increasing there. Okay, I am getting adapted to the condition of Gujarat. So that means my condition, my ability, my general skills all are developing in such a manner. Then expenditure on information. Information relating to job markets and educational institutions offering specialized skills is an important determinant of skill formation. If you have information about the diploma courses, you can very well go and have these diploma courses. If you are not aware of these courses, means nothing will be in use, right? Nobody is knowing about these courses. But if you are well aware of these courses, you can go to that courses, apply to that course, complete that course and get job according to that course you have completed. So human capital formation is promoted by investment on education and health. So besides on-the-job training programs in education and health, apart from on-the-job training. So investment on migration and information relating to availability of specialized skills and job markets also contribute to the human capital formation. So human capital formation means if you take a country or if you take a nation, it plays a very vital role. It is not actually natural resources and man-made capital plays a very important role. You need skills to use these resources, right? So for using these resources, these skills are needed. That is called human capital. So human capital formation has a very big role to play in the economy. In the next video, we will look what are the role of human capital formation in the economic growth of a nation. Okay. Yes. So now we will move on to the role of human capital formation in the economic growth of a country. So first point is change in emotional and material environment of the growth. So human capital formation generates a change in emotional and material environment of growth. That means emotional environment becomes conducive to growth as people tend to acquire growth oriented attitude and aspirations. Then material environment becomes helpful to growth as a society now possesses higher number of skilled and trained workers to implement the plans and programs of the economic development. So that means emotional environment. If you are happy, your working environment will be so happy. So you will be contributing more efficiently to the working. And material well-being or material environment means if more people are coming to the work or more people are trained, that means more skills are being developed. So that means emotional environment and material environment are taken care of while you are creating a human capital formation. Next is higher productivity of physical capital. Physical capital means, see, human capital formation increases productivity of physical capital. Physical capital means machinery, tools, which is tangible, which you can touch with your hand. That is physical capital. So it increases. Human capital increases the efficiency of physical capital. That means, see, suppose for the first time you may not be trained for using that machine. But if you get trained by using this machine again and again, you will be very efficient in using that machine. Okay. Earlier you need you needed 10 hours to work on that, but now the same thing you are working on as 2 hours. So that means it increased your efficiency in working with that physical capital. So it increased its productivity. Then innovative skills. When we are moving on to the what you could say, the job, on the job training is more provided, or training is more provided, means our skills will develop. So that means we are on a note of innovative ideas. So we create innovations. Entrepreneurs create innovations. Entrepreneurs are nothing other than the human capital formation. So that means we create innovative ideas. Okay, we can think. We have brain, right? So that is the unique feature we have. We have brain and we can think. So that means we are able to create innovative ideas in the economy. So that can also contribute to the GDP growth. Then higher rate of participation and equality. By enhancing the productive capacities of the labor force, human capital formation induces greater employment. If we are skilled properly, you will get job properly. So that means it increases the employment opportunities in the economy. If employment opportunities are increasing, means that will contribute to the GDP growth rate, and thereby the country can develop or grow. Okay, so that means this increases the rate of participation. That means if more training is given, more laborers will be participating in the employment force. So that means it increases the rate of participation also. And higher the rate of participation, greater the degree of economic and social equality in the society. So that means everyone is getting equal opportunity to get employed. That is the meaning. So that means economic and social equality will be restored if higher rate of participation in the employment sector is happening. So these are the role of human capital formation in the economic growth. Now we have to move on to the problems facing human capital formation in India. What are the problems we face in India on account of human capital formation? First one is rising population. Rising population is creating a huge pressure on the human capital formation of India. So this is because it reduces per head availability of existing facilities. On the job training, maybe it is only 200 people at a particular point of time. So that 200 people are only trained. Other people who are waiting outside is not trained properly. So that means rising population creates a pressure on human capital formation. Then brain drain. Brain drain means migration. Suppose if I am studying here and I am going to job for a out country or a abroad country, means my brain is actually drained, right? Drained to other country. If I am studying here, everything is here, but I am going to job in USA, my skills and my knowledges are being drained to USA. So that means brain drain. Okay, those who decide to migrate are persons of high caliber such as scientists, administrators, executives, engineers, physicians, all such people, they actually opt to migrate. Nowadays, it is very common that we go to higher like other countries and go and do the job, because their salary package is also good and you have a good environment there to work also. Then deficient manpower planning. So we lack planning. Okay, manpower planning is actually lacked in the human capital formation of Indian economy. So not enough efforts have been made to maintain the demand supply balance of ever rising labor force in the country. Some people, they are actually still employed in the agricultural sector of India. The agricultural sector is the dominant sector of India. So there more than more than half of the population is under the agricultural sector. So actually there is no proper planning is taken. Manpower planning is taken on account of being employed. Okay. Then as a result, India is facing an explosive problem relating to the graduate unemployment. Then it is a sad reflection on the wastage of human power and human skill. Some people stop studying at 12th grade. Some people doesn't opt for degree or PG. So that means their human capital formation is adversely affected in the country. Then insufficient on-the-job training in primary sector. Agricultural sector, they don't possess a very highly efficient what you could say, highly efficient sectors with all infrastructures. So on the job training is very poor in agricultural sector or primary sector, and still you have on the job training programs in agricultural sector, but still we do lack a very proper infrastructural on the job training program in the primary sector. Then low academic standards, that is what I told. Some people stop studying at 12th grade, or some people even stop studying at 10th grade. So that means it is adversely affecting their what you could say, the standard, the academic standard which a country is depicting. So we have been you have so many universities, you have so many colleges, but still we don't opt for these higher educations. So this is also actually it is an international market we are competing with. Okay, why we are going to other countries, or why we are migrating to other countries? That means there you have better opportunities than in our country. So that is an international competitiveness we have to face. Okay, so these are the problems facing human capital formation in India. So in the next video we will be dealing about education as an important element of the human capital formation. So in this in your thing, it is only given as education as an essential part of human capital formation. That also we have to study. Okay, in the next video that we will deal with. Yes, children. So now we will move on to the very important part in the chapter, that is education as an essential element of human resource development. So how education plays an important role in the formation of human capital in India. So education means it is the process of teaching, training and learning, especially in schools or colleges, and it improves knowledge and develops skills. So it is a process of teaching, training and learning, especially in schools and colleges, which improves knowledge and develops skill. So education, actually you can say it is as an undercurrent of economic and social change. Undercurrent means very important part of economic and social change. So however, compared to the other countries, spread of education in India has not been so encouraging. So but if you take the state of Kerala, we have 100% literacy, but there is no what you could say, there is no quality in education. Okay, why we are going to other countries for in search of good courses and all? Because in our country it lacks, that's why. So education sector in India, it is not so encouraging. Then also the literacy rate in the overall country continues to be very low. And according to the census of 2011, 74% people are only literate against the 95% literacy in the developed countries. We are only 75% literacy in the country. And you have some objectives and importance of education. You have first one is education produces responsible citizens. Then it develops science and technology. It facilitates the use of natural and human resources of all regions of the country. That means without wastage and misuse. It expands mental horizon of the people. See, if you are educated, if you travel anywhere in India or anywhere in the world, you feel very confident to face the world, right? But if you are not well educated, you will never feel that comfortability wherever you go in the world. So that means it increases the mental horizon of the person. Then it helps economic development through greater participation of the people in the process of growth and development. Then it promotes cultural standard of citizens. Also it develops human personality. Then why there is a need for government intervention in the education sector? See, nowadays, not nowadays, you have both private sector and public sector in the case of education and health. Why it is necessary for government intervention to these two sectors? Let us see. Need for government intervention in the education and health arises primarily on account of certain factors. These sectors need huge investment with a high fixed expenditure. So it is not possible for the private sector alone to take up the expenditures of these sectors. It is difficult to expect private investors to invest in health and education unless they are allowed to recover their huge cost through high price of these services. So at like ultimately what will happen, the poor people will be not able to afford these education and health services. That is why government is actually interfering in this sectors. People in a poor country like ours cannot afford high price for education and health. So that is why what is happening, government is interfering in these sectors, health and education. Then growth of education sector in India, that we will deal in the next video. Okay, that is actually a lot to discuss. Some 8 to 9 points are there to discuss. So 9 points are there that we will discuss in the next video. Okay. Yes, children. So now we will move on to the growth of education sector in India. And in the first thing you have expansion of general education. I'll be providing with the reference table. So institutions, that is the primary and middle schools, senior secondary and senior secondary schools, colleges, universities, it all has been increased very tremendously. I'll be providing with the table so you can have a look on the numbers. The number of students, that is primary and middle school in 1950 and 51 to 2015-16 is the comparison period. In 1950-51 primary and middle school students were 19.15 lakh. It has increased to 17 crore in 2015-16. Higher and higher secondary schools, it was 15 lakh in 1950-51 and it has been increased to 3.2 crore in 15-16. Then higher education, it was 3.6 lakh and now it has been rose to 346 lakh. So this is the what you could say, the expansion of general education sector as far as India is being considered. So during the plans, the number of education institutions providing elementary education has increased roughly by 5 times. And in 1951, 18.33% of the total population was literate. Then elementary education. Elementary education means it covers up to the classes 1 to 8. That is primary and middle in the age group of 6 to 14 years. And you know that is now a right, that is a child from 7 to 14 years has to get compulsory basic education. The number of primary and middle schools has been considerably increased. That is in 1950-51 it was 2.3 lakh which has been increased to 12.70 lakh in 2015-16. Then however a low percentage of admission of children in primary classes points to educational backwardness in the country. That means even though we have a number of what you could say, the elementary or middle school this thing, but the enrollment in these educational institutions were very less. So that contributed to the educational backwardness of the country. Then social and economic poverty is the principal cause of educational backwardness. They don't have much income to send their children to a good school and give them education. Then it is secondary and senior secondary education. In 1950-51 there was actually 7.4 thousand secondary and senior secondary level schools which has been rose to 2.52 lakh in 2015-16. Then in 1987-88 Navodaya Vidyalaya was established to impart modern education for good standard and talented students in rural areas. Central government has been established to Kendriya Vidyalaya as central schools for benefit the children of transferable employees. Then currently the number of central schools in the country is estimated to be 1128 as against 931 in 2007. Then you have higher education. After independence, higher education has shown a convincing growth over time. As many as 799 universities are providing higher education in the country. Of these, 44 are central universities. Besides, there are 40 deemed to be universities also. The total number of colleges for general education in the country is 39,071. And the number of students in all universities is 346 lakh as per 2015-16 economic survey. And University Grant Commission regulates and guides the higher education of India, that is UGC. Then you have vocalization of secondary education. In February 1988, the central government launched a plan to vocalize central education. Under this plan, financial assistance is to given to those schools who start vocational courses at higher secondary, that is the +2 level. And also efforts were undertaken to successfully complete these vocational courses. By 2012-13, the permission was granted to 11,000 schools in the country to start vocational courses. Okay, then about 10 lakh students are getting vocational education in these schools also. Vocational courses have been introduced in the areas of agriculture, trade and commerce, engineering, technology, health and also medicines. Then you have technical, medical and agricultural education. Since independence, the number of institutions imparting technical and professional education has also increased significantly. That is medical colleges, technical, that is the engineering colleges, agricultural education institutions like that. That is the professional education colleges. In 1951, there were 43 diploma level polytechnical institutions, but it has been increased to 1914 in 2015-16. There are 3,400 recognized engineering colleges offering degree level courses, and which has been increased to 15 lakh students per year. Presently, there are 289 medical colleges in the country with an admission capacity of 32,815 students. Number of dental colleges are 282 with an admission capacity of 22,680 students. And many research centers have been set up in the country, that is Indian Institute of Technology, Agricultural Research Institute, Indian Statistical Institute, National Physical Laboratory, National Chemical Laboratory, Institute of Economic Growth, etc. Presently, as many as 617 community polytechnics had been established. So these are the level of technical, medical and agricultural education. Then rural education. Rural areas have always witnessed wide expansion of education. National Rural Higher Education Council has been set up for this purpose, and under this 14 rural educational institutions have been functioning. Children of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes get free education in all the states. Then adult and female education. In order to eradicate illiteracy, special arrangements have been made for adult education. That is, adult literacy, National Literacy Mission was set up in 1988, and since 1976 formal education program has been launched. It aims at providing meaningful education for the youth of age from 15 to 25 years. And also women have been given more importance in this sector. Women Education Council was set up as a significant step to promote education among women also. Then Total Literacy Campaign. National Literacy Mission was launched to render everybody literate in the country. So the program was named as Sakshar Bharat with the central focus on female education. The programs cover all those in the age group of 15 and above. That is what we told, as the 6 to 14 years was the elementary age group, and after that it is being the age group for education, proper formal education. It may be noted that there are 11 crore illiterates in the country between the age group of 15 to 25 as per 2015-16 data. In the state of Kerala, see, we have 100% literacy. Kerala is having 100% literacy. So in December 1993, in the conference of 9 most populous country of the world held in Delhi, a plan to give concrete shape to the objective of education for all has been formulated. Yes, so now education is also still a challenging proposition. Why? We will look in the next video. Okay. Yes, now we will move on to the educational, still a challenging proposition. So focus on education has tremendously increased over time. That is, now about 96.5% of the children are now going to the school. And also you have the constitutional provision for free and compulsory education for the children between the age group of 6 to 14 years. And quality of education and infrastructure continues to be but disappointing. And you have certain challenges what we are facing in the Indian education sector now. Large number of illiterates. First point is large number of illiterates. That is, India harbors the largest number of illiterates in the world. You have 36 crore people are estimated to be illiterate presently, and the number will exceed even the total population of most countries of the world. Then inadequate vocalization. Education continues to be largely degree oriented, throwing millions of educated youth down to the corridors of employment exchanges. Vocalization of education is still a far thing. Then gender bias. Gender bias means only male are getting more employment opportunities rather than the woman empowerment. Education system in India thus needs a substantial change in the attitudes of the people. Then low rural access level, that is a high degree of disparity in access of education. That means when considered urban and rural areas have more access to the formal education. Then privatization. There is a growing trend towards privatization of education. Nowadays you can see more than government schools, you have private schools. Being a very expensive, private education has tended to be widened the Gulf countries, widened the gulf between the access level of rich and the poor. There is almost drought of educational opportunities for the poor sections of the society. They actually get a very low opportunities to be get admitted in the private schools. Then low government expenditure on education. The government has failed to fulfill its commitment of spending nearly 6% of GDP on education. Actual expenditure has been rounded to 4.5% only. This points to the gap between what is intended or desired and what is actually achieved. So to conclude, we have education in India has failed to reach the masses, but has also failed to break the vicious circle of illiteracy. Illiteracy breeding poverty and poverty breeding illiteracy. So that is the condition now India is facing. So now you have a very poor you could say very poor sector of education in India. Even though we have achieved a very good position in number of colleges and schools what we have established up, but we actually lack in the quality of education what we provide. That is why in front of your eyes itself people are moving to other countries for education. That means we lack the quality what we give in the what we give or what we provide, our government provide. Our government has strictly, or you could say it has without any doubt, our government has not fulfilled for what is to be done in the education and health sector. Same cases with health sectors. Here it is schools, there it is hospitals. So now we have to you have to shape our country to such a situation where you have less number of illiterates, and also whoever is getting education, they get actually a quality education. Okay, so with this we complete the chapter. I'll be providing the reference notes also. So now in the I think now we have to now only we have two more chapters in this, that is employment and unemployment, as well as development experience of India, Pakistan and China, a comparative study. So that we will deal in the next classes coming up. Okay, and I have one more chapter with the macro, that is the this thing. Determination of income and employment, that is the Keynesian economics. I have that chapters to complete, so I have only 3 chapters to complete now. So in the coming days we will be dealing with that chapters. Okay, thank you, have a good day, take care.